Inside the Simpsons kitchen, Lisa is baking cupcakes to bring to Miss Hoover for her birthday at school. Once at the schoolyard, Lisa shows off her cupcakes to her friends, and one of Nelson's minions steals the cupcakes and begins to eat them. Bart comes over to Lisa's rescue and attacks a bully, White Weasel, and friend of Nelson Muntz. Nelson then comes over to break up the fight. He picks up Bart by the shirt collar, with Bart blindly swinging. One of Bart's punches lands and gives Nelson a bloody nose. Everyone gasps at seeing this. Nelson tells Bart he will get him after school. Inside the classroom, a worried Bart imagines about the showdown with Nelson after school, and there is nothing Bart can do to defeat Nelson. In the lunchroom, everyone hails Bart as hero. A modest and nervous Bart downplays the situation. Nelson walks up to a trembling Bart to remind him about the fight after school. Back in the classroom, Bart daydreams again, this time about his own funeral, in which his family mourns him, especially Homer, who has then grown a conscience and realized that his son was more important than work. Lisa places the cupcake on Bart, reflecting on how the flight was her responsibility. Nelson notices this and pounds him one last time. Back in reality, after school, a nervous Bart darts around the playground, hoping to avoid Nelson. Bart turns a corner only to see Nelson standing right in front of him. Nelson promptly pummels Bart, throws him in a rubbish bin, and informs Bart to meet again tomorrow after school for another beating. The garbage bin with Bart inside rolls around to a stop in front of the Simpson house, and a weary Bart stumbles out and goes inside the house. Once inside, Bart walks past his parents in the living room and heads to the bathroom to cry. Marge sends Homer in to console Bart. Marge eavesdrops on the conversation, and when it's revealed that Nelson is picking on Bart, she bursts in and gives Bart advice. She advises him to talk nicely to Nelson and try to settle things like a gentleman. Homer disagrees and takes Bart into another room and shows him how to fight Simpson style, or in other words, dirty. Next day, after school in the schoolyard, Bart uses Homer's advice and flings mud in Nelson's eye, which only makes Nelson furious. Nelson beats up Bart again and shoves his hurt into his mouth, throws him into another bin, and rolls it away. Once again in front of the Simpson house, the bin rolls to a stop. Lisa is sitting on the sidewalk and suggests Bart seek Grandpa Simpson's advice. Bart goes to the retirement home and visits Grandpa. Grandpa tells Bart to just stand up for himself. An elderly neighbor named Jasper enters Grandpa's room and demands Grandpa's newspaper. Grandpa says no and stands up for himself. The two have a tug-of-war over the newspaper, and Jasper wins, realizing that Bart standing up for himself might not work. Grandpa says he's friends with someone who can help. Grandpa and Bart go over to Herman's Military Antiques to ask Herman for advice. Herman tells them Bart needs to start a small army, and they begin to devise a plan. At school, a note is passed around class. The note tells the kids anyone fed up with Nelson should meet at Bart's treehouse after school. Inside the treehouse, a group of kids along with Herman and Grandpa wait for Bart to arrive. Bart stumbles in after being beaten up again, as well as caught up his hat, and rallies the recruits and encourages them to join in his battle against Nelson. Army marches, drills, obstacle courses, and training with Bart as the drill sergeant commences. Back inside the treehouse, days later, the battle plan is being finalized by Bart, Lisa, Herman, and Grandpa. Milhouse steps in and informs Bart of Nelson's whereabouts, and the battle plan begins. Outside on the streets, Bart confronts Nelson, and out of nowhere, Bart's army appears with water balloons, much to Nelson's surprise. Water bombing takes place, and Nelson is captured. Bart wheels a tied-up Nelson in a wagon back to the Simpson house. Bart tells Nelson that he hopes he has learned his lesson and reaches to untie him. But Nelson says as soon as he is free, he is going to pound Bart. Inside the Simpson house, Herman draws up a peace treaty between Bart and Nelson, which they both sign. Marge steps in and hands out cupcakes to everyone. The public service announcement is from Bart, who tells us all that violence is never the answer to bullying. The only good wars in history are the American Revolution, World War II, and the original Star Wars trilogy.